Hello and welcome to Tifo IRL, our brand new channel, where we look at tactics using this jazzy board here. We're going to talk today about Kieran Trippier and a potential move to Manchester United, why that might happen, what would be good about it, what maybe is problematic. Before we do that, I'd like to draw your attention to the athletic.com/Tifo Football, where you can currently get a deal of a 30-day free trial. Obviously, that's going to allow you to read all kinds of exciting Manchester United content, also Dermot Corrigan's excellent stuff on La Liga. So take advantage of that. Go to theathletic.com/Tifo Football and sign up. Okay, Kieran Trippier and Manchester United. Why? Okay, so this move is being widely reported as something of potential interest to Manchester United. Obviously, they already have a right back in Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who they've spent quite a lot of money on. So what's the potential reason for this interest? What would Trippier bring maybe that Wan-Bissaka doesn't? What would Manchester United lose with that change? We're going to have a look at how they both attack, how they both defend, and then conclude by looking at some of the reasons that this might be something that's in Manchester United's thinking. So let's look at Kieran Trippier first. So what Atletico Madrid like to do is invite the opposition onto them and then exploit this space down this side here for Trippier to get forwards and do lots of exciting attacking things. So when he gets up into this kind of position, what you see from him is a number of different options. The first thing that he likes to do is he likes to get up into this position here and pull the ball back. He does that very effectively. He will also deliver crosses here from the sort of right half space where maybe there's a little bit of bend on that cross. So you've got a player who can come in here and attack, or a player making this run from deep. And Atletico Madrid like to get their midfield runners forwards. That's pretty effective for them. And Trippier's ability to deliver these sorts of dangerous balls in here is really, really effective. The other thing that he can do, which is quite an interesting move, is he'll change the focal point of the attack. So let's say that he takes a pass in from here. What he's very good at doing is playing this quite cute little inside pass here that changes the angle for a runner who's coming around the outside there and then has an opportunity to shoot at the box. Now, one of the things that's really good about Trippier with his attacking ability is that he does a lot of this very, very quickly. So if you look at his last 5 assists for Atletico Madrid, all of them are one touch only. So he'll receive the pass at pace, running onto it, and he'll whip the ball straight away in. He doesn't take a touch. He does the same thing with his little passes inside, or when he gets to the byline. He even did one with a header where he was in this kind of position and headed the ball through. It's very, very good because it's very, very rapid. And for a team like Manchester United, who want to play on transition and who've got a lot of players that are quick and good at running in behind, that sort of pace, that delivery, where he doesn't need to take a touch, he doesn't need to stop and pause and assess his options, really adds dynamism to what they're doing. So what does Wan-Bissaka do that's different? Manchester United will have this kind of double pivot here. One of these players will drop off, centre-backs will push up a little bit here. And Wan-Bissaka, again, has the job of running this channel, but it's slightly different. So what he's quite good at doing is he's good at carrying the ball. So if players come through here, he's much more likely to burst through or burst past those players. He's good at taking players on. He's got relatively good touch, but he's got dynamic running ability. So he's able to take the ball into dangerous areas at feet. What he's not so good at doing is crossing first time. So although his crossing has really improved, it's probably most effective from this kind of area here. Sometimes that'll be a pullback, sometimes that'll be a deeper cross, maybe even floating one towards the back post here for a runner. He likes to take a touch before he does this. He likes to stop, assess, and then he'll get that whip and that curl. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has had some criticism for his attacking game, and it really, really is worth pointing out that he has improved considerably in this facet. So this is a player who obviously stood out when he was at Crystal Palace for his defensive attributes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But he has developed the ability to get forwards. He contributes more consistently to United's attack. He's able to overlap with Mason Greenwood on the right-hand side tucking in as a kind of inverted forward. And so United are getting a degree of dynamism and drive from him. He will also tuck in here quite a bit and sort of shore up that position, and also act as a nice out ball here if United are trying to recycle possession and look for passes through there. So he's got dynamism, he's got the ability to take players on, but what he doesn't quite have yet is that initial kind of whip and curl when the ball is moving and he's running onto the ball, he's taking advantage of that space in front of him, and he's delivering it first time. He stops, he assesses. Very often then his option is good, but with Trippier you just get a little bit more instantaneous kind of approach. The ball will go into that dangerous area a fraction of a second quicker. And if you've got a striker like Edinson Cavani, that can be incredibly effective. He's going to make these runs in here, or he's going to drift off the shoulder of this defender here, and then he springs forwards. And if you've got Trippier delivering that cross, running into that channel and pulling it back really, really quickly, Cavani would prosper off that. So if this is a move that does come to fruition, I would strongly expect that combination to be very, very effective for United. In terms of numbers, this season, Wan-Bissaka's got 4 assists and 2 goals in the league. Trippier's got 6, but there is a bit of a disparity. So Trippier's 0.18 assists is coming out at an expected assists of about 0.14. Not a massive difference there. There's more of a drop-off for Wan-Bissaka, and one of the reasons for that is that a couple of his assists have been where he's just laid the ball off to somebody who's done something really, really good after that. So he hasn't so much created the goal, he's just played the pass before it. That's not a criticism, because he still has to be in the right position to do that. He still has to take the right option. But I think if you're looking purely at the numbers, it maybe slightly favours Wan-Bissaka in terms of how much he adds to Manchester United's attack. But he's a phenomenal defender, so let's look at that next. So defensively, Kieran Trippier is not a bad defender by any stretch of the imagination. And one of the things that you have to consider when you're assessing defensive players, whether you're using statistics or the eye test, is the system that they play in, because that's really, really crucial for defenders. Diego Simeone, obviously a fantastic defensive coach, and even with this slightly more progressive, slightly more attacking 5-3-2 system that he's used at times in La Liga this season, Trippier's job is not as proactive as Wan-Bissaka's. So Atletico Madrid will quite often fall back into this shape here. They'll protect the box. Trippier's job is to kind of patrol this area, push out, close down if there's a wide player here, make sure that any inside runs here are tracked and monitored as well. But Atletico Madrid know that with 2 or 3 centre-backs and Jan Oblak, who's an incredibly commanding goalkeeper, they can kind of, as long as they force play into the wide area, crosses in, not that much of a problem. So they're pretty conservative in terms of how they press, for example, in those areas. Now, it's worth noting that Kieran Trippier, when he was at Spurs, he pressed a lot more frequently, many times, 6 or 7 times per 90 more than he does for Atletico Madrid. But his pressure success rate is about the same, somewhere between 30 and 32%. So that shows that, yes, okay, there might be a slight athletic drop-off because he's getting older, but generally speaking, if the system requires him to press, he can. This system requires him to press less, so he presses less. If you compare his other metrics with Aaron Wan-Bissaka though, tackles, interceptions, blocks and clearances, he's clearly making considerably fewer of those than Wan-Bissaka is. So generally speaking, Wan-Bissaka is in the top 25% for those 4 metrics altogether. For blocks, clearances and tackles, he's right up at the top. He's the sort of player who really, really stands out almost as a defensive unicorn. He's kind of leading the way for right backs in European top 5 football. Kieran Trippier is not that, but then he kind of doesn't have to be that because the system is more protective. It allows him to be a little bit more backseat, not as progressive. There's not as much of a reliance on him as a one-on-one defender. So what's the advantage of having a one-on-one defender like Aaron Wan-Bissaka? Well, in Man United's system, where they have this 4-2-3-1 that we're familiar with, this midfield pivot likes to keep relatively close, or should like to keep relatively close. Sometimes they get dragged out of position, but what that means is that Wan-Bissaka has quite a big area to cover. And with Maguire being more of a sort of front foot defender and Lindelof dropping off and covering a little bit, that actually expands the area that Wan-Bissaka has to cover. Now, because he's such a good one-on-one defender, because he has this incredible athleticism, this ability at tackling, he's able to do that. It also compensates for occasional positional weaknesses, so he can get drawn forwards a little bit, maybe too high here, leave a bit too much of a gap for Lindelof to have to cover, but he's got the ability to get back, make those tackles or hold the player up, and that's really exceptional. And I think it is worth saying that whatever Wan-Bissaka loses out on in terms of his attacking game, he doesn't lose out as a defender. He really is top drawer in that respect. But Kieran Trippier would add a little bit of experience, a little bit of nous, maybe a bit more command. This is a player who's just come off a season where he's won La Liga, and that might kind of elevate the experience levels of Manchester United's defence. That's the kind of intangible that's really, really hard to measure, and it's hard to draw any kind of solid conclusions about that. But there is a trade-off with those two players. Would Manchester United's defence be worse with Trippier than Wan-Bissaka? In certain aspects, yes, but maybe in certain aspects better, and it's really hard to draw a kind of firm conclusion on that. So what are the reasons that they might be interested? So I think there are 3 potential reasons why this is the sort of transfer that Manchester United might be interested in. And I'm going to go through them in kind of ascending order of likelihood. So the first reason is potentially a system change. And the clue here is in the setup, which is the Atletico Madrid setup, kind of. So if you bring in Kieran Trippier here as a right wing back, you get all of the advantages that we've talked about. You've got the first time delivery, you've got that ability to hit the ball on the half volley, whip it in with pace, Edinson Cavani predating off that. Could be very exciting. Aaron Wan-Bissaka then moves here into this role. He's the outside of the 3 centre-backs on the right-hand side. Now this does kind of make sense for Manchester United. You've then got in Harry Maguire here and Wan-Bissaka here. You've got 2 players who can bring the ball out of defence. This allows the midfield to push up slightly higher. You can then spread out here, and because you've got wing-backs in Luke Shaw and Kieran Trippier who get really far forwards, you could have that kind of nice 1-4-5 shape where, this is really secure here. You've got decent passing and ball carrying, perhaps even add a more creative player in that double pivot because there's additional security. And Victor Lindelof is here at the back sweeping up. That does make sense, but further up the pitch, it causes Manchester United problems. So here we have Bruno Fernandes. Now, Bruno Fernandes has been integral to everything pretty much that Manchester United have done well this season. And so it's very, very difficult to drop him from that 10 slot. Could he play a little bit further back? Yes, he did that occasionally when he was back in Portugal, but it's not his natural position. It's not where he wants to be playing and affecting the game and drifting into these spaces here. Alternatively, even if he did play further back, what you then have is perhaps an issue with these wide players. So Mason Greenwood, Cavani through the middle, Rashford. It all starts to get a little bit complicated in the attacking patterns. Where do you fit these players in? Who misses out? So although further back in the pitch, having a 5 at the back does make a lot of sense, and Wan-Bissaka playing in that role, I think positionally he's going to learn, he's going to adapt just like he has as an attacker. it causes enough problems up the pitch for Manchester United to make it not particularly likely. The second reason is more of a sort of game-by-game thing. So if we go back and assume that United stay as a 4-2-3-1, what you have here is against teams that want to drop off and play a really, really low block. We'll put them in a 5 because that's what a lot of those teams will do. There's going to be an awful lot of space down this side, and there's going to be the ability for players like Cavani to make these runs in behind. And here, Trippier's ability to carry that ball into space or to take the ball in space and then hit things first time is going to be really effective. Against a packed defence, the thing that will break that down is the speed of movement of the ball and players around that packed defence. And that's something that Trippier can do. Wan-Bissaka is much more likely to take the ball up here, have a think about it. By that time, you've got players coming across here and it really reduces the options. However, against teams that are much more aggressive and attacking and are looking to stretch the play and push things up here, having Wan-Bissaka as your fullback gives you a much, much greater degree of solidity. So against a quick winger, Wan-Bissaka can push up here and still be confident of winning that foot race or making a recovery tackle. It allows United to play a slightly higher defensive line to try and mitigate the fact that the team is pushing up against them. It's the sort of thing that does make sense again on a kind of game-by-game tactical basis. There would be games where having Trippier makes more sense, games where having Wan-Bissaka makes more sense. But then from a financial perspective, the sums being talked about, especially given how much Wan-Bissaka cost and the fact that he's quite young, is this overall strategically a good idea for United? Probably less so. There are other areas of the pitch where that money would be better spent, and I would suggest that putting your faith in a young player who's shown that they are developing, that they're addressing the weaknesses in their game without losing the strengths might make more sense. So again, this is possible from a tactical perspective, but there are maybe better options. What's the last reason they might do it? Well, the last reason is potentially that actually they just think Trippier is better in the short term. Now, again, there are tactical reasons for this. So United want to play in transition. They want to try and move the ball quickly. They don't have a great deal of creativity in midfield at the moment with that double pivot. And the ability of players like Greenwood and Rashford, and particularly Cavani, to find space around the edge of the box. It's something where Trippier's speed of delivery, his speed of thought, and his technical execution could be a serious advantage. And we've talked a little bit about how that link up with Cavani would probably be particularly good. That in the short term maybe does make the most sense for Manchester United because it opens up a whole other flank. United like to get these interchanges of play here with Bruno Fernandes drifting over, Luke Shaw pushing up into this space, Rashford over here. That does have the tendency to drag teams over onto this side. And then all of a sudden, you've given Kieran Trippier the freedom of the right flank for those quick switches of play and smashing it in. That's actually how teams that use wing backs do things really, really effectively. But again, in the long term, does it make sense to have a fullback of Wan-Bissaka's quality sitting on the bench as an understudy, maybe being sold off? I don't know. So it's really, really tricky. These are the sorts of decisions that football clubs have to make. What's the short-term benefit and the long-term benefit of these kinds of things? In the short term, from an attacking perspective, Kieran Trippier, yes, makes a lot of sense. Wan-Bissaka, though, defensively superb, improving all the time as an attacker. I guess we'll have to see how this plays out. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, then please subscribe to our channel, Tifo IRL. Oh, you think I get the name right by now. Like the video, leave comments, and we'll be back with lots more content over the Euros and beyond. Thank you.